Welcome back into A to Z here on Locked On Sports Atlanta. Give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On ATL. Of course, you can always follow me at Mark Zinno, MarkZinno. Make sure you check out all the great shows that we have here on Locked On Sports Atlanta every single day. We appreciate you guys making Locked On ATL a big part of your sports listening repertoire, a big part of my sports and Falcons repertoire, both reading, visually stimulating all the time. Or my good friends at the Falcoholic, and we welcome in the editor, the man. What is your actual title? You just run the Falcoholic and make us all laugh. It is Dave Choate here on A to Z. Dave, welcome and happy draft week to you.
Happy draft week! I can't believe we made it.
Every year
I'm surprised. Yeah,
we absolutely did. It really is one of those years where, we always say nobody really knows what they're going to do, but there's a lot of options for the Falcons this year. Forget need for a second. There's just a lot of different ways they can go given their draft position and what is out there. So without making an official prediction or asking me to tell me what you think, I'm just saying if you were Terry Fontenot, I just anointed Dave Choate, Terry Fontenot, you are making the pick. Who would you take?
I would take Thibodeau. I have been into him as the pick if he was going to make it to 8 for a long, long time now. And I am starting to believe, probably foolishly, because who knows what's happening this draft cycle, that he's actually going to make it there. And these reports that he would be sort of the quote unquote parachute pick for the Falcons, they'd be the team that would stop his slide, have really encouraged me. And I mean, every year, practically I'm stumping for, the next great edge rusher with that first round pick. And they haven't gotten that done. We got one great year of Vic Beasley, but to me, he could be that guy. He would be the perfect pick. And he's the guy that if I'm Terry Fontenot, I'm certainly taking advantage of that slide.
If he's not there, what are you hoping for next?
That's a great question. I've been thinking about this one a lot, and I think I have talked myself into, and again, here's another, is he here or not? But I think I've talked myself into Malik.
Oh, you froze at such an inopportune time. Do that again. You froze at such for the people who are going to watch this. What happened? What happened? Malik Willis is who you've talked yourself into.
Yes, okay. Malik Willis. Yes, sorry about that. Yes, and with.
Oh, man, you're frozen again. What is going on here? See, this is bad juju for the Atlanta Falcons right now. When the Falcoholic is freezing in the middle of our interview, I'm not sure the world is going to be able to operate here. So, Malik Willis, what happened? Why do you want Malik Willis?
Well, hopefully I can finish my sentence. My bad. So the reason I want Malik Willis, I have, a lot of confidence that with the right team, with the right landing spot, with patience, he's one of those guys that can turn out to be special. I think he's got all the tools you want. I think he's a smart quarterback, and I think he's willing to learn. I think he'd be excited to be in Atlanta. And where you have Mariota, under a very flexible deal, you can have him just for this year. You can have him for 2 years. You can have him there to be that mentor. He's signaled he's willing to do that. Willis to me is a guy that you take that high, even in a year like this where, the quarterbacks maybe aren't the best of the best. They all have their flaws. And you take that time to develop him into somebody special because, I don't think you can wait around if you like a guy, and I can't imagine they don't like Willis, and hope that next year you're getting somebody.
See, now
just in time to rescue you with all that cap space.
We agree on the quarterback drafting philosophy. We'll get back to that in a minute. I want to ask you this question, though, and that is, what is the one position or even a player that if they take, you're going to be infuriated with?
Yeah, I guess there really isn't one. I'm not going to be happy if they take a wide receiver.
Thank you. That's the obvious answer.
Yeah.
Right? Like if they take a wide receiver, I've been saying to everybody, my puke factor for a wide receiver is like just a hair above zero. Like there's just no legitimate justification. I don't care best player available. I don't care any of that. When you are at 8, there are plenty of best players available. right? Like that's just the reality of the situation. This best safety likely is still going to be there in Kyle Hamilton. One of the two best corners is likely still going to be there, whether it's, Derek Stingley Jr. or Ahmad Gardner. There's just no justifiable reason to take a wide receiver at this point, especially with nobody to block, no running game, and nobody to throw him the ball.
Yeah, and I think you look at it, and I'm receptive to the idea that somebody like Drake London is a good fit for this team. Obviously, huge guy, tons of yards after the catch.
Arthur Smith kind of guy, right? Like he's the receiver he wants.
Absolutely, Arthur Smith guy through and through. But like, if you in back-to-back drafts are taking weapons for your non-existent franchise quarterback, who you don't really have protected, the defense isn't built out. Like, I get best player available. I can't imagine a receiver being the best player available at 8. If you're going to trade down, maybe, but like it's to me that would be a frustrating pick.
The ever unsexy offensive tackle pick, which I actually think is an incredibly astute, shrewd move for the Atlanta Falcons. And I know Charles Cross from Mississippi State said he doesn't want to play right tackle. He only wants to play left tackle. That's fine. But if one of the three is there, Neal, Ikwanu, or Cross, at a minimum, you're bookending your tackles for the quarterback you're going to theoretically take next year. And not only that, when you have to move off Jake Matthews because of his contract or he gets too old, you already have a guy who can slide over in a year or two and go play left tackle. It makes way too much sense to take one. Fans aren't going to be excited about it. No one's going to fill Mercedes-Benz Stadium because of it. But from a building a roster standpoint, it's a very smart move.
I think so. And I think, somebody like Neal, a month ago, if you told me there was even a possibility Neal might be available at 8, I'd be jumping for it. And obviously everything's unsettled, but it would have been a smart pick a year ago. It's a smart pick now. I think there's probably no way they pick up McGarry's 5th-year option. You're not hanging your hat on McGarry or Fetty taking the job and convincing you they're going to hold it down for 3 to 5 years from here. So, that is a great pick. I am a firm believer it needs to be way better at building the trenches than they were under the last regime. And we know that. So either side of the ball, you get yourself an edge rusher, you get yourself a potentially dominant tackle. I'm very happy with that. Like you said, it's not sexy. It's not going to sell tickets all by itself, but it's going to be a foundational move for the next winter, which hopefully is coming soon because it could be 5 straight losing seasons, man. I'm tired.
Yeah, I get it. Now, we've spent the last 7+ minutes just talking about the 8th overall pick, and I reminded my listeners, my viewers last week that you really have to judge this draft on its totality. You can't get hung up on what happens at 8, even if it is a puke wide receiver. You can't get hung up on that so much as if they get a pass rusher in the second round. With their 2 third-round picks, if they fill out the offensive line, if they find another edge rusher there, all those things that are available. In the 4th round, if they grab a safety, you continue to grow depth there. Like, you have to look at what they're going to do in all 7 rounds. There's really no fair way to judge this thing. I know all the attention is going to go to number 8 and what happens there and whether it's bust or not. But in reality, Dave, there's a whole roster to build and no cap space to do it. So these 7 guys are all going to get legitimate opportunities to at least make this team and play.
Yeah, there's no question. And I think you look back at last year and they, Terry Fontenot at one of his press conferences made a big deal out of noting that they had more rookie snaps than any other team in the NFL a year ago. And they're going to be in that boat again. I firmly believe that. And even if they weren't, you have to build this team through the draft just as much as you do through free agency. That money, I know we're looking at maybe 100 million plus next year. That money's going to go fast. There's only 25, 30 players under contract for next year. So you look at that and you say to yourself, if you don't hit on at least half these guys, if you don't get legitimate contributors throughout the draft, you're going to have to make up for that in free agency. You're going to have to make up for that in what's probably going to be a smaller draft class a year from now. Like it's tricky to do. The Falcons burned a couple of draft classes, under Dimitroff in the last regime. 2017 really comes to mind as an example. And you just can't do that. This team, if they don't get multiple contributors and if they don't get more out of last year's class this year too, you're looking at going into next year with a lot more question marks than you'd like for what I'm viewing as a must-win, no excuses type of year, where you have 2 draft classes under your belt with a ton of draft capital and all that cap space. So it really is like top to bottom. We can get excited or be disappointed over number 8, but whatever they do from there is going to be just as important, if not more important, for how the roster functions.
All right, let's get back into this quarterback conversation because I really do enjoy it. I've had it with a lot of guests. And you said the key thing before. You don't wait on your quarterback if he's there. As a Giants fan, I totally disagreed with them picking Daniel Jones. I didn't think he was a good quarterback selection. That said, I agreed with the philosophy of taking him at 6, even though they had 2 picks, because you're not supposed to wait and hope your quarterback falls to you. You don't hope the prom queen is still available the night before the dance to ask her. Like, it's just a flawed philosophy from top to bottom. And I've been telling everybody this whole, past month or so that, look, the Falcons are in a rebuild, whether they want to acknowledge it or not. And you can't rebuild a roster without the quarterback situation figured out, whether that's a veteran, whether that's a guy you have for the next 3 to 4 years, or that's a young quarterback that you're going to build around. You just can't do it. And right now, there's nothing to believe that Marcus Mariota is anything other than a Band-Aid, a bridge, a 1 to 2 year max gap, right? To get to whenever they feel like drafting a quarterback. That's my argument for taking a quarterback. If they believe it's Malik Willis, I'm fine with him at 8. But I am also fine with it under one caveat. Throw him to the Wolves and figure out if he can play. And if he can't play, guess what? Draft another one next year, just like the Arizona Cardinals did. Now, I know, again, they changed coaches and it was a different regime, so it's a little bit easier. But you can't be afraid to move off a bad investment. Look, the Cincinnati Bengals had nobody. They had nobody when they threw Joe Burrow to the Wolves. A bad offensive line. They had T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. A.J. Green was hurt his entire first year. They had nobody to throw the ball to. But you could see, obviously, Joe Burrow could play. He made them competitive. So if you throw Malik Willis to the Wolves, and who cares if they're not winning? At least if the games are interesting, they're fun, they're competitive, and they have a chance to win them, you got a guy you can build around.
Yeah, and I think, I'm fully expecting Mariota to be under center no matter what they do week 1. But if he's not under center, week 4, week 8, whatever it is, I do think, I didn't think this way initially, but I'm coming around to it that, yeah, you got to see whether you, especially if you're going to be so bad as the Falcons might be, that you could be in a position to get a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud a year from now, which is not a given. And that's where I hesitate with, like, don't take anybody this year and punt it again. And maybe Felipe Franks turns into something. That's not a winning philosophy. But yeah, you got to get him in there at some point, preferably early if they're ready, if you feel they're good about it, and see what they can do. But I do think this team is not in a position where they can afford to say, like they did a year ago when they had an opportunity to get a quarterback to sit behind Matt Ryan for a year or two, which I guess we don't have to rehash, but yeah, and now it's a little bit more dire because, again, to me, the one thing that you cannot do is be looking at the start of the 2023 season and somehow you kept missing, and you don't have a top guy, and the free agent quarterback class a year from now is not good. We all know Kyler Murray's getting moved. We all know Lamar Jackson's getting re-signed. There's just not anybody out there. You have to get this done. Get a rookie at some point in the first few rounds. You have the draft capital to make that happen. Figure out if they can play. And then if they can't, you have to figure out something else. But you've probably put yourself in a position to go after a top guy. So, hey.
Yeah. It's, again, I just have a problem with a rebuild without the quarterbacks. You can't build a team around anything other than a quarterback in the NFL. There's just no way to do it. You can't. The Colts are a team that, had Andrew Luck and they built around him. And then when he left, they were able to insert a quarterback. Now, twice they've been able to do that with Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, 3 times actually. Phillip Rivers, Carson Wentz, and now Matt Ryan, who are all fans of Indianapolis. We've changed from red to blue now, all hoping Matt, does really well. I was actually joking, Dave, with a couple of really hardcore Falcon friends. I said, let me ask you a question, and I'll ask you this thing. What would you rather have happen more this year? The Falcons make the postseason or Matt Ryan makes the AFC Championship game?
I'd always rather see the Falcons make the postseason.
Good answer.
I mean,
I'm glad you said that because I got a lot of. I hope Matt Ryan makes you.
Yeah, and I mean, I want him to do well. Like I would love to see the twilight of his career go really well. He gave a ton to the franchise, the city. Obviously, it'd be nice to see him function with a good defense. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I am sick of watching the Falcons lose games. Like, I'm sick of waiting for it's right around the corner. Let's see a postseason berth. It's not going to happen, but I would rather see it for sure.
Yeah. Well, look, I know you will be there to help us cry in our beers and soak all of our tears up together, as the Falcoholic always is. Near and dear to my heart. Your entire staff is fantastic. Certainly appreciate all the great work and the time today. Enjoy Thursday night as best you can. Have a cold beer in one hand, tissues in the other, and a bucket between your legs to vomit in if you need to. I think that's how my Falcoholic friends will prepare for this whole deal.
I think that's true. And, let's both hope it's not a wide receiver. Let's go with that.
Amen, brother. Dave Choate of the Falcoholic. Follow him on Twitter at the Falcoholic. Thanks for the time. Certainly appreciate it. All right. Coming up next, we will wrap things up here on this Tuesday afternoon. Make sure you stay with us right here on A to Z on Locked On Sports Atlanta, free on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast. Search Locked On Sports Atlanta.